Hi, this is Dr. Ben Young, and you're listening to episode number 14 of the Perio Patient Podcast. And just to fill you in, I did go to the Haven for Hope, as I explained last time, and it went very well. Very complicated to try to help people who they don't speak Spanish. We don't have easy translation. Sometimes family members have to translate for them in different languages. We almost used the Google translator for a particular language. I'm not going to go into details on these people because it's really confidential stuff. But the logistics of this are challenging to try and communicate with people who are here, and they are here for very legitimate reasons, very sweet people. They're not crashing the gate. They're not doing anything wrong. And yet they are thrown into a situation where they are strangers in a strange place, in a strange culture, not being able to speak the language. It's very difficult for them. And my heart goes out to them, and I hope yours does too. And so trying to help and do what we can and not come across, especially as know-it-alls and irritated in any way. It's a little bit challenging, not really, in the fact that once you really understand what's going on, your heart is softened toward them. But then you just have to do what you can do to communicate to people who can't speak your language simply by trying to address what their problems are. So I was fortunate to be with a team of others like-minded who are trying to achieve the same thing, and it's a challenge, but it's certainly worthwhile. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve in this way. It comes back to bless me more than I'm sure it blesses others. It's just the way God works in those kinds of things. And I promised last time that I would go into smoking, and the reason for this professionally is the fact that people who smoke have more problems with the management of their inflammatory conditions in their mouths, that is periodontal disease, than those who do not smoke. And it's pretty clear. I think there is sort of a difference between people who smoke less than half a pack a day and those who smoke more than that. And some study designs are actually set up in that way to differentiate the two groups. So it seems to indicate that what I have noticed personally in my own patient population is seen by others and is actually considered when doing some scientific investigations in this area. So that's interesting. I want to get into my recommendation on how to talk with somebody about smoking. And before that, let me just say that it's an addiction, a strong addiction. Some people feel that it is the equivalent or worse than heroin or cocaine. I'm in no position to make a statement like that. I don't work in that particular area, so it's not for me to judge. All I can tell you is I totally understand that it's a strongly addictive activity. It's interesting that people don't start smoking for the same reasons that they end up continuing to smoke day after day, year after year. Most will tell you that there was some event or some desire to be like others. It was a social thing that got them smoking. It was to be accepted by somebody. And that's a kind of a key as to how I'm going to tell you my recommendation for how to stop and why people struggle so much in this area, stopping with other programs and other ways. Now, let me also say before I tell you my story and how I talk with people who smoke, is that there are two components to the addiction. There is a physical addiction and there's a psychological one. The psychological one is much more challenging and goes on indefinitely, and it deteriorates over time usually. But I know of people who say, I get a bad diagnosis. I may not have smoked for 30 years, but I'm going to go down and buy a pack of cigarettes if I'm not going to live another 6 months. And the reason for that is that they have never really lost the enjoyment aspect of the smoking. The psychological aspects are very strong. Other people, that's not the case. They don't miss it, and they're happy to be done with it. So that's an individual difference. But to get through the addiction that's the physical really takes, people say, 5 days. And I know that smokers will tell you that I don't believe that. It must take longer than that. But no, the physical aspects of if you stop smoking, you're going to have jittery nerves, you're going to have problems sleeping, you might have headaches. There are going to be some physical repercussions for your wanting to get out from under this addiction. It's a punishment, I guess, in a sense. You're going to get punished. You're going to get spanked by the drug itself. But it's going to last about 5 days. There are some things you can do to reduce the problem. One certainly would be to talk to physicians and get some help. And counseling, group counseling is a really good one. If you go through in an organized group, that helps, because a lot of it is just distracting your mind from the battle that you're in. And if you have the opportunity to do it alongside other people where everyone can communicate and talk about their struggles as well as yours, you learn a lot, and it mutually reinforces people's ability to stop. So we do better if we do it as a group, if you can do that. Sometimes it's difficult because you're living around others who enjoy smoking and don't want to stop. So now you have that additional challenge that you can't, you might have to do it in a secretive way. You don't want to have people trying to undermine your desires. A lot of these things occur, and those things have to be kind of calculated in. And then beyond the group element, you can consider nicotine patches or other options, medications that physicians can prescribe. I won't prescribe them. That's not my area. But I know that these things can help. The other thing is, if you're smoking over that half a pack a day, well, then drop to a half a pack now and stay on that a little while. And I think that your addictive elements, in other words, it's harder to stop cold turkey from a 2-pack a day behavior than it is from a half a pack. So get to a half a pack as soon as you can, and then begin to plan how you're going to drop from half a pack to nothing. And most people, I think, will tell you, I would, that at some point you need to cut it and stop, that the reduction is very difficult. If you're not to that point where you're ready, there is one other thing that you might try, and that is to only smoke the cigarette down half its distance and discard it. Get enough of the nicotine to survive the irritation stuff until you're craving again, and see if you can do it that way. It's a difficult thing to think about, because what you're doing is you're paying the same amount for cigarettes and you're smoking them less. But remember, the objective here is to get off them completely. And when you do, you will find you have a tremendous amount of savings that this habit has been pulling from your bank account for a while. And so you can get some relief in that. All right, I'm going to stop now, and I'll pick it up next time right off to tell you how I would explain to somebody how to stop smoking. If I don't do that now, this is going to go really long, and I respect your time. So until next time, thanks a lot.